Happy Tuesday, everybody. Jason Robertson from Minnesota. Prayers out to Wayne and the Dupree family. And thanks for everybody joining us today. We got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about.
There is a lot going on. I wanted to start the show out with something that I forgot to mention yesterday because it happened over the weekend, well, actually Friday. One of the things that you can gauge people's loyalties or their integrity on different issues is when an event happens and you look at people's initial reaction. And everybody knew that everybody in Congress knew that the verdict was coming down on President Trump at the end of the week. And you saw various reactions, some of them real milquetoast, but one of them that I don't want to let him get away with. And that is somebody who I feel is a complete fraud, and people in the audience probably love him. And that's just where we tend to differ. Senator John Kennedy was, he issued his tweet after the president's crazy communist verdict and was just proud of his fishing trip that he was on. He wasn't even in the Senate when this happened. The same day that Mike Lee and the other 10 senators, the best fights we have, I mean, this is all we've got, strongly worded letters, but he wasn't even in the building, man. And that ticked me off. That sealed his fate with me, Jason. I mean, that's a personal opinion, and I know he's a great actor and he's an Oxford educated Rhodes Scholar and all that, but I'm not having it, man. I don't have time for that.
I was going to say Senator Kennedy is such an interesting character because he plays that aw shucks good old boy. You thought he would own a crawfish farm.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that he's a highly educated Rhodes Scholar, and he plays that aw shucks thing perfect. And nobody makes a better sound clip or sound bite than Kennedy when he's talking to judicial nominees and asking them questions. But nobody is there less when it matters.
That's right.
And that's Kennedy. I mean,
and that's what you just described is the part that he was assigned to play.
Yep.
His job is to make the controlled opposition. He can talk about judicial nominees. He can make fun of people in his Jethro Bodine voice, but the man votes for war every time. And he votes for omnibus every single time. And he called the J6ers terrorists. And we have got to be better on our side. We absolutely have to be better. I'll give you another example. All right, I'm going to ask a couple questions, make a couple assumptions. The Justice Department in the United States of America in 2024 is a radical left-wing organization, correct?
Fact check, true.
Go after all right-wingers, all MAGA, any Democrat that strays off the plantation, they go after them. Democrats don't get prosecuted for anything in 2024, up to and including murder. They don't get prosecuted for it. A cop shot a girl in the face or in the throat, an unarmed 4 foot, 5 foot tall woman, veteran, in the face, and nothing happened to him. He got promoted.
Yep.
That's the DOJ in the United States of America right now. So you have to look at the Hunter Biden case as what it is, not what you want it to be. Hunter Biden is never going to prison. It's never going to happen. That Hunter Biden case was allowed to go forward to take your eyes off the ball.
Yep.
And any conservative outlet that's writing massive amounts of articles in it is playing the game. They're fools. They're fools. I'm telling you, that's to take your eye, and they're all running with it, Jason.
Well, you know, it's fascinating, Hutch, because I love watching this court stuff and reading the transcripts and all that. I just find it fascinating. And the Department of Justice, they levy these charges. So, you know, there's some play on the back end and who knows exactly what it is. Like, I think what they're trying to do is say, oh, see, we're going after Hunter too.
Sure.
But on the jury, they let multiple Biden connections on the jury. This is the prosecution.
And where's the trial?
Trials in Delaware, not in a deep red area. And these federal gun charges, they've let known people that are known acquaintances of the Biden family, people that have had family members that they felt were wrongly prosecuted for drug charges. The DOJ let them on the jury. And you know how this is going to go. It's going to be a hung jury, or they're going to acquit him. And Democrats, I mean, they're going to come out and say, oh, see, like nothing to see here. A jury of his peers acquitted him. And that's why the Donald Trump thing's a legitimate charge.
Now, there's another way you could look at it, too, because the judge is a Trump-appointed judge.
Right.
You could look at this as, is this the way that they're going to off-ramp Biden?
Could be. I mean, I think you'll see.
You can't look at anything at face value. You can't.
Right.
We're past that. We got it. We got to get better.
Well, and that's what's interesting, because we've opined on this show, there is virtually no chance Joe Biden's a nominee, and they've just got to figure out how they're going to offload him. And I think we've talked about, I think that kind of crowning moment's going to be when he has the debate with Trump. Can he get any lift? Can he get any traction? So they're setting this stuff up where he's got an easy off-road. Hey, I got to go take care of Hunter. Hey, this stuff comes up. Meanwhile, they're going to continue to try to damage Trump. And like I say, they're doing it so predictably that it's crazy. And I tell you what, Big Mike's coming. Get ready for him.
Victor Davis Hanson said that a vote for Biden is a vote for Harris. I don't know what's going to happen. I personally, myself, I don't think there's going to be a debate. If there is, it's great, and I'll watch it. But I just I can't see them. I just can't see them doing that. Maybe they will. I don't know. It's just the guy's horrible, man. 2 hours? He'll die in 2 hours.
I got to say, that's the thing that's insane, is how many drugs do they have to put Joe Biden on so that he can be awake and complete a sentence for 2 hours? I mean, you might see the guy drop dead right in the middle of the
that's enough drugs to just, the hangover on that's got to be crazy.
Right.
It's got to last 3 days.
Well, and you saw it at like the State of the Union. Joe Biden walks out, his eye. I'm like, man, I couldn't do that in my heyday, take that much.
And I don't know if he's going to stick to his guns, but President Trump already said he wants a drug test first.
He did.
You know, I mean, he's never going to submit to that.
No, well, this debate's the biggest scam ever, too, because they're bypassing the Presidential Debate Commission. Joe Biden gets to dictate all the terms. You know, because there's no official rules, they're going to leak the questions or have communication with. I mean, they did it with Hillary in the DNC against the other Democrats. You know, now an unregulated body is going to do exactly the same thing. And I don't know how they're going to have Joe Biden reading for, you know, his little speech and try to make it look like he didn't, like he wasn't getting fed the questions.
It's like, Mr. Trump, did you look over at Candidate Now? You know,
right. Yeah, horrible. He's so bad he reads the long pause or whatever when he type out instructions. It's, oh my God.
There's some good things going on in the judiciary, I guess you'd say. Trump's appeal hearing to disqualify Big Fannie Willis set for October, which pushes the trial past the election, which means it's probably going to go away.
Right.
The people of Fulton County reelected her too. What a shame.
I don't know.
In the primary, rather.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's going to win the general, I'm pretty sure. But that primary, I can't believe, because they actually had a competent Democrat to go up against her. And if I'm a resident in Atlanta and I see her testimony, I'm just like, oh my God, we do not need ghetto queen representing us.
But Atlanta is a ghetto queen.
Right. I guess you might be right.
If you've ever been there. I mean, it's.
Right. Yeah, they might be. You go, girl. Like,
yeah, that is what happened. I guarantee that's what happened.
Right.
You know, but hey, whatever. They got to live there. I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But this trickery that's going on in the Republican Party. I'll tell you, I saw something the other day, right? Not the other day. I saw something this morning, getting ready for the show. And it was, I don't want to say it was stunning, but it was suicidal. I don't understand. We talked about this yesterday, and I talked about it last night. We got to get off the Republican playbook, man. The Republican playbook is so lame. Speaker Johnson came out yesterday and said he was going to use every piece of ammo in the I forget what, every tool in the arsenal, he said. We're going to use every weapon in our arsenal to stop this DOJ and stop this lawfare. And I'm going, dude, you paid for it.
Right.
You fully funded it. What do you mean you're going to do everything? And we have to keep it set. We have to be the rule of law party, and we have to use the Marcus of Queensberry rules. And no, man, so they got to get rid of this guy. You know who's mentoring Johnson? John Boehner.
Oh, really?
Ousted Speaker John Boehner emerges as quiet mentor, surprising tutor to Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, you're a failure.
Well, and here's what's funny. Mike Johnson, you're Speaker of the House. You have one tool. One tool.
That's it.
That tool is the power of the purse.
And you gave it away 3 weeks in.
You gave it away 3 weeks in. You've continued re-upping omnibus bills. You've continued doing whatever they wanted, approving whatever funding they want. You have one weapon. And I mean, today he just came out because they got Garland up on the Hill and, oh, these sham trials can't continue, rah, rah, rah. Bro, you're the one doing it. What?
It's the Johnson trials. This is the Johnson DOJ.
Right.
And I got to tell you, and I'm not going to drag on this because I know this is not my show and there's opinions on this show that aren't mine. But I got to say, at least one time, MTG looks like she's the only one knows what's going on in Congress right now with this Fauci hearing. I mean, these people they're dancing around, all around the edges, but nobody goes there but her. And what do the Republicans do? As soon as she starts calling for what needs to happen, they throw her out of the hearing.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Well, and MTG is kind of a complicated one. And I mean, I think she got corrupted by McCarthy.
Oh, they're all corrupt. I agree.
They're all corrupt. But that doesn't mean you can't take a win when it's a win. And
we got to win the battle. We got to win the war one battle at a time. And she's the only one with her bayonet on.
Yeah, we got to fight with what we have.
That's it. That's all we can want. That's all we can do.
The Fauci trial was ridiculous. I mean, I watched a bunch of that yesterday, and I'm like,
so did I.
How is this man walking free?
And he is so belligerent,
right?
That he thinks that we're wrong,
right?
He came out yesterday. He was stunned at the vitriol at the hearing. Dude, you killed 1 million people,
right?
You know how many people in this room had their family members murdered because of you? And listen to him. He just won't give it up. Watch him blame unvaccinated people. Now, we all know, I'm not a doctor, but I saw what happened. Vaccinated people are still getting COVID.
Yes.
Sir, and do you think the American public should listen to America's brightest and best doctors and scientists, or instead listen to podcasters, conspiracy theorists, and unhinged Facebook memes?
No, listening to people who you just described is going to do nothing but harm people because they will deprive themselves of life-saving interventions, which has happened. And some have done studies. Peter Hotez has done an analysis of this and shows that in people who refuse to get vaccinated for any variety of reasons, probably responsible for an additional 200,000 to 300,000 deaths.
I'll tell you, I'm going to go back to that real quick and then take it off. I want you to look to Dr. Fauci's right on the table.
Sir, and do you think the American public should listen to America's brightest and best doctors and scientists, or instead listen to podcasters, conspiracy theorists, and unhinged Facebook memes?
No, listening to people who you just
is right. This guy is a multi-millionaire.
Right.
And sitting on the table to his right is a pair of government issue glasses, because I have the same pair and I got from the VA. That guy is getting free glasses. That's how, that doesn't mean anything, but I just noticed it. And it's like, man, this is unreal. This is unbelievable. This guy's doing this.
Well, and I got to say, if you look at the context of that testimony, Fauci just made stuff up. He made up 6 foot. He made up masking, these projected death numbers. There is no math behind that. Or, there's math that shows 10 million more could have died, and there's math that shows 10 million less could have died. It's all make-believe numbers that he's coming up with. But a bedrock foundation of America is that we get to challenge the government information, and we get to say, is this right? Here's this. And American citizens get to make those decisions. And That was the thing with COVID that was so wild. We didn't even get to have that conversation. We didn't get to talk about, hey, is this right? I mean, things are coming out like the I word rhymes with hectin that we can't say on some of these social media platforms. Studies continue coming out showing that that was positive. They're still clinging to these lies about transmission. In that hearing yesterday, he's like, well, at first, yeah, it was really stopping transmission. It's like, no, it never was. You just lied in front of Congress.
And how about that setup? That
Right.
setup question that guy gave.
Right.
I mean, out of your whole district, there's nobody that got killed because of this.
Right.
They're going to put you guys. You got to watch your representatives. These people, they should never be back in Congress. They tried to freaking kill us. And slow and end an election, throw an election, and the economy. Look how many small businesses went belly up. I mean, out where my cabin is, businesses are few and far between, and there's half as many left now. Because they just couldn't sustain it.
And it's really remarkable because COVID's going to go down as the greatest wealth transfer we've seen ever. And they killed mom and pop businesses. They increased costs. They protected big corporations. Anybody that is part of a big corporation or owns stocks in a big corporation, they came out like gangbusters. And they want to frame this on Trump, but it was all the uniparty. Everybody was pushing. Donald Trump, I think, genuinely took too much advice from people he thought he could trust. And that's, that will be the footnote to term 1 for Trump. And for term 2, let's pick better people that are actually going to have the interests of the American people at heart, and not serving corporations or whatever nonsense.
And I think his team, he's got a crack team this time too. I mean, you're not seeing any leaks anymore, like the corrupt Republican Party did to him.
Yep.
You're seeing the RNC has hired lawyers. I mean, I'm still not ready to back the RNC. I don't care if Laura Trump's in there or not. I think there's some real snakes in that organization, and I think one of them is the one that he picked to be the head.
Yep.
I don't even remember his name, but I don't trust that guy as far as I can throw him. Mm-hmm. And I just hope the ones that the chief of staff is supposedly a good guy, and Laura Trump, we've talked to her, is supposedly good. So hopefully they can be his eyes and ears and probe this and get rid of people. They hired back, like they got rid of a bunch of people at the beginning, and they hired virtually all of them back already.
I think one of the things that we're going to have to accept, as much as we don't want to, is that with all the big money that's in politics, people are just going to get corrupt. So as a nation, right or left, whatever your persuasion, until we get to campaign finance reforms and the abilities for companies and PACs to bribe all of our politicians, be it if they're working in the election apparatus or in Congress, until we get that in place, we're going to continue. You might even get kind of like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she might have went there with good intentions, and then people with the money got their hooks in her.
Either the money or the cameras.
Money, the cameras,
or the blood tests. I mean,
right? Yeah.
It's not just bribery; it's intimidation too. We know that,
right?
And this is why it was so important for them to destroy the church.
Yep.
Because that's where your base was. That's where your integrity kicked in. And you didn't take the money. You didn't take the easy road all the time.
Right.
It's a shame. It really is. A little bit more on Fauci. On March 16th, 2020, Mr. Fauci received email cheering hydroxychloroquine treatment of COVID in China. 4 days later, he publicly rebuked President Trump at White House presser for suggesting it as a valid COVID treatment. I mean, I was watching that, because all that is quinine.
Right.
You know what I mean? It used to be able to buy it on the shelf until the FDA got to Clinton and they pulled it off the shelf so they could sell expensive drugs. I drank, what's it called? Tonic water throughout COVID, just to try to, and I got COVID, and I had smoked for 45 years. So it should have killed me. It should have killed me, but it didn't. So why, I don't know, but I've never had it since.
And this just in, though, COVID is a type of virus. We've had this virus for hundreds of years. It's just a type of flu. That this version was just a more virulent version, had a higher mortality and a better spread rate. And there are so many pharmaceuticals that we could have used to help stop that. And a lot of these were Nobel Prize winning things. I mean, think about how they frame things as horse paste. It's like a Nobel Prize winning medication gets framed up as horse paste. And then they sit there and they say, "Oh yeah, trust the government." Are you kidding me?
I know. They've totally destroyed during this last 12 years.
Right.
They have totally destroyed any faith, any thinking person's faith in any institution. I mean,
and that's at what point do you look at the government if you're still somebody largely on the left, but even some establishment Republicans? How many times do they need to be caught lying to us in big ways? Everything back from what they knew about JFK to Tuskegee. I mean, just go down the list of all the times the government has lied to you significantly. And then like 10, 20 years later, they come out and go, "Yeah, it turns out we were lying about that." And everybody just goes on like, "Well, yeah, just keep." I'm watching this Garland hearing today, and Gates, I should have grabbed the clip, but he goes, "America, did you communicate with the with the Bragg's prosecution?" And Garland's like, "Oh, that's a crazy conspiracy theorist. It's dangerous to say that." And he's like, "Okay, well, why don't you give us all your communication back and forth, but with those guys?" "Well, you'll have to submit a request." "Well, you're sitting right here." "Well, no, you just have to trust us. We can't fumigate these crazy conspiracy theories." It's like, trust the government, and we're not going to give you any of our stuff that could corroborate it. And I don't know. I'm going to need somebody to help me out. How do people, mainly people on the left, land with, "Yeah, the government wouldn't lie to me. This seems legit"?
Don't you have any family members that died?
Right.
I mean,
yeah, and there's studies that are coming out from abroad that are showing like how bad the vax was. And
there's a guy from Scotland saying that, this isn't over yet.
Right.
That we're getting ready to get hit this year. There's some massive deaths. And man, I got family members that took that. I hope they're all right. Well, it's hard to get over this thing, man. It really is. But
and you watch the charts and you see these unexpected lifts in the charts of like young people with heart problems. And charts can be manipulated, but if you look at both like the percentage and the gross number, like they're going up a lot. And then everybody's like, "That's really weird. I wonder what's happening with that."
All you got to do is listen to the phlebotomists and the funeral directors.
Right.
When they do the embalming, they're finding all these white fibrous strands of whatever it is, spike protein or whatever in people's veins and arteries and things. That's shady.
Yeah.
You see pro athletes falling dead at 23. The most physically fit people in the country.
Yeah, and everybody acts like that's normal. And if you bring anything up like, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," and yeah, and the chat's going wild. I know Paul Reese from Split Rock Coffee, he lost his mom this past weekend. Prayers to Paul and his family. Turbo cancer, and she was in the old folks home and they made her get the shot. So it's like, I mean, turbo cancer was never a thing, extremely rare. Now you're starting to see, especially in old populations, where a lot of that's happening. It's crazy.
I don't know if I said this yesterday or not, but one of the things that I saw during COVID, there's a couple things that really stand out in my mind I'll never forget. We have a Jewish neighborhood. It's not all Jewish, but a lot of Jewish people live there. And there's a place called the Irene Kaufman Jewish Center, or Irene Kaufman Center, the Ikes. I learned how to swim there.
Okay.
And because my school was right next to it. I'm not Jewish. But not that matters. But I'm going past this in the middle of COVID after the vaccines came out. And Jason, there was a line of 50 to 100 elderly Jews lined up outside getting ready to go get poisoned by this jab.
Ugh.
And I'll tell you, it brought back memories of the Holocaust. I'm looking at this and I'm going, I was thinking the other day, I wonder how many of these people have died.
Right. Well, and if you look, COVID was most fatal for old people.
Yeah.
And they didn't test the vaccine. And I mean, the fact they were giving it to kids and it's just, there was no, right. Can you imagine these poor kids that got 4 or 5 of those shots through that period, and you're going to have that hanging over for you for the rest of your life.
My son-in-law, man, he was a senior in high school, didn't get any graduation. He graduates this weekend from college. He got them all.
Ugh, that's tough. Yeah, we had my stepson, he graduated in COVID, so of course there was no ceremony. Probably the hardest personal story for me is, so my son Cody, his mom and I are divorced, and we amicable co-parenting. We live a couple miles apart. We did the 50-50 custody thing, but in COVID, I was I don't think we need the shot. Let's not go crazy. I mean, we weren't doing a lot of stuff in public or whatnot, but she was the other end. She was like maxing it. She was wiping down all her groceries with Clorox wipes for a year and all that. And my poor son, as he was put through that, like, hey, in this house, like, we're maxed up in the house. We're not going anywhere. We're ordering our groceries, and before we bring them in the house, we're Clorox wiping them. Then you come to my house, and it's like, well, we're all kind of in the house. Like, life's just fine. And my son's relationship might not ever be the same after that. And what a spot. Just think how many people in America were put that. I mean, we had an office I was working in, and we had COVID go through. Everybody got sick. Everybody got better. But it's just amazing. And I mean, people are still working from home after COVID.
Oh, I know. There's military people working from home still.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because my wife was she's getting to the point now. She's like, maybe I get a work from home job. And places are starting to cut back on that, and they're starting to bring people in. But I read an article, Walmart, their corporate office, everybody did remote work. And now finally, after 4 years or whatever, they're like, oh, all need to come back to the office. And a bunch of people moved. And they're like, well, we can't just come into the office. They're like, what do you mean you moved? Like, you got to get in here in the next 60 days or whatnot.
That's crazy. I'm telling you that whole, and I kind of had not the same, but close. I had just recently retired, and my wife still worked. And she went and got the vaccine without saying anything to me. She just told me she got it one day. And I was like, oh no, you're kidding me. And then at least she didn't take any boosters though. She got it after that. She figured it out, but I hope she's all right too. This thing is crazy.
Well, yeah, my wife had to get one shot, and like her office, she works in a doctor's office, and they started with like, oh, we'd like you to. And then eventually, pretty quickly it hit, well, you either need to do this or you can't work here. And they weren't even letting them do work from home, which in her job she could have done. And so I mean, we still deal with that. Like, she's almost 50 and she's getting circulation problems or that kind of thing. And it's like, I wonder if this could be related. And luckily we found a doctor who's at least honest. Like, yeah, they don't really know what the side effects will be. Like, this technology is pretty new.
I think that's one of the things that was destroyed the most is the medical. I don't trust these people anymore.
Right.
I canceled a procedure on Friday because I'm like, you know what, man, I'm not dying. I'm not going under the knife. Not if I don't have to. I just canceled it.
Well, and it's fascinating too that people just aren't seeing this pattern. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of pattern recognition. Your medical industry is controlled by big pharma, and it's designed
as is the government and the media.
Right. And so your medical professionals, they make more money by not necessarily giving you the best care, and it's interesting. I have a friend of mine that works in the medical industry, and they have shot A that they make, they get to bill $100 or $150 or whatnot. And they have shot B that they get to bill $3,000. So which one does the doctor prescribe? Both have the same efficacy, both have the same everything. But it's like, and they're doing that because they're making more money from the pharmaceutical companies. You look at the government benefits for COVID vaccines, doctors were making millions of dollars if they got enough people vaccinated. And you think that's just natural and organic and it had no effect on it? It's insane.
Yeah, they were getting paid per diem by how many they gave.
Right.
How many people they inoculated. It's crazy. America's food supply is under attack. Beef is the primary target, with everything from climate change to bird flu being wielded against cattle. It behooves Americans to stock up on long-term storage beef, and we have the solution. Preparewithbeef.com is a veteran-owned company that sells premium steaks with a 25-year shelf life. Ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin. They don't sell the beef crumbles or beef chunks that other survival food companies offer. At preparewithbeef.com, our listeners can take 25% off with promo code RVM. Stock up now before cricket burgers become a thing by going to preparewithbeef.com and using the promo code RVM. And I'll tell you, when this first came out, it was the crumbles.
Yep.
And I was disgusted. But this, I think I'm going to get some of these.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to have a bunch of steaks, like a significant amount of a bunch of steaks.
Right.
Just put away somewhere to go with all that porridge stuff that I got from the other food supply. You know that
I was going to say we've been talking about survival food for a long time. And folks, if you haven't got a bucket or 2 or 10 survival food, you need to, because the fact of the matter is the stuff has 25-year shelf life. You just grab it, you throw it in the closet. You'll never regret having it. And it's not super expensive. But the one problem, because I got some of those survival buckets, the 6-month supply, and we actually tried some. And it is, it's like porridge. It's, and it's funny because a lot of it is kind of like rice base and that. And I was looking for a solution to, like, what can we do from a food perspective where it kind of, tastes better. And this freeze-dried beef, you're right. Learn to hunt. But the freeze-dried beef that we got through the RVM connection, because for those who don't know, we're on Red Voice News, rvmnews.com. Great new website. Drew and his team are getting it all spun back up. But they were checking that out, and I hadn't found a good beef thing because I had looked on a couple of the sites, and it was just the same thing where it's like, this is terrible. But looking at the reviews and looking at the products, it looks like it's real beef, kind of beef jerky-ish. So,
and I mean, freeze drying is a thing. I mean,
right.
Ron Paul used to hustle one. They were over $1,000. The machine that actually does the freeze drying. But
oh, really?
That's a good investment if you're starting a business. To start
right.
freeze drying some steaks. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. Anyway, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. One more thing on Dr. Fauci. This guy's name is Brandon Fellows. He's one of the J6 people that was convicted of, I think he was sentenced to 3 years. I don't know if he did his sentence because he's in Congress now.
Oh,
you're going to see Mr. Fauci complaining about death threats and things like that. And if you look over Mr. Fauci's left shoulder, you will see Brandon. And it's kind of hilarious. Let's check him out.
So, Dr. Fauci, can you please share with us the nature of the threats you have received since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, there have been everything from harassments by emails, texts, letters of myself, my wife, my 3 daughters. There have been credible death threats leading to the arrests of 2 individuals, and credible death threats mean someone who clearly was on their way to kill me. And it's required my having protective services essentially all the time. It is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome because they've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
At these moments, how do you feel? Keep your mic on.
Terrible.
Do you continue to receive threats today?
Yes, I do. Every time someone gets up and says I'm responsible for the death of people throughout the world, the death threats go up.
Well, you're not? You had nothing to do with that? That was somebody else.
I got to say, you can't sum up the clown world we live in better than that image, where you have Dr. Fauci, who's lied to Congress, cost people lives, and over his shoulder is some dude who walked into the Capitol on January 6th.
And how brave is he to come back?
Oh my God, that's balls of steel.
It is.
Right?
I'm going, wow, man, this guy's young and he's back, I'd be in freaking Montana somewhere.
Well, yeah, think of that. You go in the Capitol, the FBI hunts you down, they throw you, they put you through the process, your prison time, whatever, and like you're like, screw it, I'm going to the Fauci trial, sit in front row. That man has balls of steel.
He does.
Well, and what's funny too, did you see the picture of the grandma in the front row? I haven't seen any videos, but there's this old lady who's sitting right at the end of the table, if you see the zoomed out picture, and she has a Fauci belongs in jail t-shirt.
Good.
And I'm like, oh my God.
If we don't do anything else,
right,
as a movement or as a country, because anybody like these congressmen that are setting up these easy questions for this murdering guy, we have got to stay on this to the end. No amnesty, no ever. It's two different things between an election and this COVID thing. I mean, this is a separate issue by itself that has to be dealt with, no matter who's president, no matter what. Because if we don't, it will happen again. And there are people out there that are on point saying Nuremberg 2.0, because that's where we're at. It ought to be a worldwide case.
Well, and if you look, it was a huge wealth transfer. It was a huge money grab. Everybody was getting rich off it, all the people in power. We talk about predictive programming. This was a trial run. Hey, can we get everybody to throw on masks and stay home? Like, how much government money do we got to give them? And then the government money, once you set that level of spending, we just keep spending that,
That's the only reason the economy hasn't tanked yet.
Right.
Is because of government spending. They're pouring $1 trillion every 100 days just to keep this fake economy from crashing.
Right. Well, and I was reading in some financial things. We've been talking about bank crisis and things that are going on there, which, by the way, folks, make sure you are diversifying your investments. I'm not a financial expert, but there's 60 banks that are showing upside down balance sheets that if you just had investors that went in and said, I need my $1 million, like we were talking about yesterday, all of a sudden those banks would be shutting their doors. It's crazy.
I mean, you talked about it yesterday about making the loans out of the deposit, and that goes along for a while, as long as everybody's paying their bills.
Yep.
Once you stop paying bills, which is where we are right now, that's when those ledger sheets start turning upside down. I'm no expert, but that's a ground level way of looking at it.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. We saw it all in the mortgage crisis in 2008. I mean, nobody ever imagined that millions of people would default on mortgages, and they kept giving banks permission to give out worse loans with larger loans, and then it just created this bubble. And then when people just reached the point where we can't pay, I mean, it went off a cliff. I mean, you saw houses go from $300,000 to $100,000.
I was trying to buy a cabin at that time too in 2008, and I was trying to refinance my house to do it, and my house wasn't worth squat, man. It was
right.
I mean, it was like I can't get $30,000. My house is $100-some thousand. I mean, it's not $1 million house, but it's big.
Right.
It's solid. That was crazy times.
And we're facing it again. And I think it's kind of their fail-safe when Trump wins the election, where, hey, we can just tank the economy. We can slow government spending. I mean, people don't realize it's been, I'd have to look at the number, but it's been like $200 billion have gone in loans from the government to keep these banks propped up. And I mean, scary times, folks, scary times.
They did this with Reagan too. All the Carter stuff, they all dumped it all on Reagan, and the left wing was out there, and all the rap stars were out there talking about Reaganomics and all this stuff. And he turned it around, but we're worse shape now than we were then.
I was going to say it's funny you say that, because all this stuff seems to be cyclical. And in the Carter era, looking back on it, I was really young back then, but looking back at it, all the financial indicators, it was kind of the same trajectory we were on now. And then you can tell once Reagan took office, they just said, okay, we might as well take the hit. Thank God Reagan was such a great leader that his first couple years in office were not. And that's where we got
the media was just as bad as it is now. Well, not just as bad. At least they had manners back then a little bit. But I remember seeing Sam Donaldson, man, he looked like Mr. Spock on Star Trek, up there freaking interrogating Reagan and stuff. It was embarrassing.
Right. Yeah, it's the Reagan time. And I mean, the first year or two of Trump, 2025, 2026, buckle up, folks. We're going to go through some economic stuff. We're going to go through
probably
a lot of different things.
Unrest, civil unrest.
Right.
Orchestrated civil unrest. I mean,
exactly.
But we'll see what happens. We'll see if the new Trump contingent of voters counters that a little bit. It would be nice to see that.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's go on to Trump. I want to talk about, as you know, I'm no fan of the Republican Party. Steve Bannon has some advice concerning Nikki Haley.
Talking about all this stuff, and Nikki Haley has not said anything. Embrace that. And I got to tell Nikki Haley now, this is a warning, and I got to tell all the Jewish donors that got her back in Israel and all those tweets on Israel, 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 and this is coming from a show that's had Israel's back and the Jews back more than anybody. And yesterday, Biden lying, and I said it, I put up on Get, I said he lied. The Israelis did not sign off on that plan, and Netanyahu comes out this morning and says, hey, our mandate's still the same. We're taking down Hamas's military capability, political capability. So the White House is a bald-faced lie. Why? To put more pressure on them. And Israel's got to step up, and I think, let's get on. If you got to go through hell, let's go through it quickly as possible. Let's not delay. Time is not your friend. And she's over there on a state visit, and all you get in your face now, it's in your face. No defense of Trump, who's been the greatest president for Israel. In your face, one thing after, and that, if you think that's helping the case of bringing MAGA to continue to have, because if MAGA doesn't have the back of Israel, and if MAGA doesn't have the back of the American Jews, trust me, those demons you saw on Columbia and these demons you've seen in the campus and the faculty and in the administration of these universities and what you're seeing on TV and what you're seeing online, we stand in front of that, and we stand strong, but that is not helping. She's sending a signal. She's up in your grill on this thing. And mark my words, the money's going to come, and they're going to try to they're going to use a forcing function. They're going to use a forcing function. Trump's going to be sentenced, not just a convicted felon, got a prison sentence. How are you going to do this? You need stability. We need to bring in the 10% of the big donors. We need to bring it in. We need Nikki as prime minister. It's coming as sure as the turning of the earth.
Well, he needs to do a preemptive strike and select some. I've heard a couple things that I like recently. One is moving the RNC convention to July 4th.
Correct. And
another one is, he needs to pick a vice president pretty soon.
Yep.
And it doesn't need to be Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley needs to be rejected. I know the way Trump is. I know he's Machiavellian and he wants to keep his enemies close. But if you do that, be careful.
Well, if you pick an establishment candidate as your VP, hire extra Secret Service, vet them really good. Get your food taster out because they would love nothing more. But, we've opined on the show, Democrats are going to try something to not let Trump be president, some legislative things, and they're going to be aided by Republicans. I half expect at the RNC convention, there's a big push to get Nikki or DeSantis.
Guaranteed.
Or a combination of both. Yeah, guaranteed. And even Nikki coming out saying, oh, yeah, I support Trump now. It's just she's trying to get back in her good graces. She's hoping there's more better news or bad news that comes out between now and the convention for Trump. They're talking Merchant's daughter was, and it's unconfirmed, but was leaking that he's going to try to impose prison time on President Trump. Can you imagine
Rikers
that?
In a county jail.
Can you imagine that? They're going to throw him in jail.
Listen to Republican former FBI director James Comey.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
How is he still walking free?
God, I know. I mean, and we're trying. We convicted President Trump. You know, I saw a headline that under Joe Biden, the United States is just a gay USSR.
Right.
You know, and that's true.
Right.
That's true. I mean, that guy was the head of the FBI, stood in front of the world and said Hillary Clinton deleted 30,000 emails.
Yep.
Which is a jailable offense, an offense where you should never be allowed to hold public office again. It says it right in the statute. And she did it, and nothing happened. And Brett Baer just kept on going like she was a viable candidate for president of the United States, and she was not.
Well, and that's the thing that's so ridiculous about these Trump charges. You have Hillary dead to rights, admitting to crimes between smashing the Blackberries, deleting the emails, the private server, and the DOJ looks at all that. Clear one-to-one violation. This is what the law was written for. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to prosecute her. And we're going to let her run for president.
No reasonable prosecutor would bring this up.
Right. And now you've got President Trump. They literally convicted him of 34 felonies because the NDA, it's not a hush money payment. It's an NDA, perfectly legal.
Non-disclosure agreement.
Non-disclosure agreement. He paid Stormy Daniels. He paid it from a personal account instead of from the campaign account. I mean, that's what these 34 charges were. And it's like, wait a second. And these are all misdemeanors. He had to ramp them up to make them felonies. It blows me away. And how many things can the Clintons get away with? I mean, let's talk Haiti sometime. I mean, oh my God.
And I mean, it didn't just start when he was president either. I mean, I remember when Trump, or maybe when Bill Clinton was elected, the head of the FBI security on the White House detail, I didn't even know they had that, but that's what this guy was. And he resigned because he said it went from George H.W. Bush, people wearing ties and having decorum and things like that. Say what you will. Republicans are more civilized than Democrats. And then when Clinton got in, he was like catching dudes getting it on in the bathroom and stuff. You know, it's like, and he had to leave.
Right.
So I don't know why I said that. Oh, yeah, because another book I read was by an Arkansas state trooper that there's bodies all over Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Over the Clintons. I mean,
right.
if half of that stuff was true, I think he was on the president's security detail.
Right. I got to say, there's some fascinating follows on Twitter. One of my favorite follows is Juanita Broderick.
Yeah.
And she was one of Bill Clinton's victims, or alleged victims for legal purposes. But she claimed, I tend to believe her, that she was sexually assaulted by him. And it's amazing, like crickets. No, like.
Same with Biden.
Right.
I forget her name, but there's a woman with her too.
Yeah.
With him, rather.
Right. Yeah. Tara Reid, she had to move to Russia because she was going. And then you think about Christine Blasey Ford against Kavanaugh that has like no basis, doesn't remember what happened. Jeannie Carroll. And these people are getting paraded on TVs and getting book deals and show deals and all this stuff. And it's like this imbalance of prosecution between not just Republicans, but populist presidents and people that are owned by the Uniparty that just bury this stuff, and they bury it in plain sight. And not enough Americans care.
And the thing about it is that the Uniparty is one thing, but the Uniparty is not the power. Right. Uniparty is the TV show stars.
Yep.
That's all they are. When you see the news, you're listening to the CIA, man. You're listening to government, to the deep state. Let's not break it down to one agency. You're listening to the deep state. People are telling Chris Cuomo what to say. And now that he's on his own, he's getting confronted by it every day. It's lovely.
Right.
I love watching that. They're pointing right at him. No. Stop, Chris. You said it. I heard you.
Right.
You know, he's just as guilty, and he always will be. And I saw another thing where this guy was describing the intellectual low point that we are as a society right now. And the way he explained it was, back in the day, I used to watch William F. Buckley Jr. debating Gore Vidal. And you juxtapose that with Sean Hannity debating, I don't know, Chris Cuomo or you know, whoever, Don Lemon. And you look at the intellectual difference between those. We have dumbed our media down so badly. I had to quit watching that guy a long time ago. I mean, I just, you could tell every time he learned a new word.
Right.
You know, he used bifurcated like 16 times in 2 days.
Well, and when I watch the media, personally, I watch it just like I'm watching a TV drama or I'm watching pro wrestling or something else. These are paid actors that people prepare a script, and it's either from the CIA or from the advertisers, and they say, here's what you're saying today. And you hit the nail on the head. The Chris Cuomo arc is just phenomenal because he hit a point and they voted him off the bus. And for everybody on the left that we said they're going to turn on you too, just watch what they did to Chris Cuomo. But go in and check out his shows or when he does an interview. And if he gets anybody that's at all prepared, it's like, well, hey, Chris, on this day you said this. Now you're saying something different. And he's like, well, you see, but he's got no out. And aren't you curious what Chris did to get voted off the island?
I don't know. Yeah, it had to be something. I mean, I know I watched him. It looked to me, he had these really oversized dumbbells.
Yep.
That he was lifting, and they couldn't be real. I mean, he was humping them like they were cardboard.
Right.
And I'm looking at the size of those things, and I'm going, man, I used to do that with like 30, 40 pounds, and it was hard to lift after a couple of times.
Right.
And you got something that looks like it's 150 pounds. What's going on with that?
Right.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but those things.
Yeah. His weightlifting things, like it was. I want to see some. You almost expected like housekeeper to walk by and like pick up his dumbbell and like back him under it, and set it down, just like it was a cartoon. But and I'm kind of excited too. Have you seen any Cuomo on the Patrick Bet-David podcast?
That's what I was talking about.
Oh yeah,
that comedian that was there on stage with him is a genius.
Oh right, yeah. And
I don't know who he is, but he's good.
Well, and they savage that guy, and it's funny. Cuomo needs the money.
That's where I heard the Hannity thing.
Right.
From that comedian.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the Cuomo on the Patrick Bet-David show, when they first put him on, I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna go, but those boys are savage. And Cuomo's just got to sit there taking it because he's like, oh, I need a paycheck.
Where'd he come from? I mean, I know he was in the Army. I know he's in the 101st. He's from Iran.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden he showed up and it's like, dude, this is the best interviewer ever. You know, he's got people that you don't see. He's got Phil Leonetti for 2 hours.
Yeah, I got to say, Patrick Bet-David, I've watched his stuff for a few years, and he had Value Vision or Value Entertainment.
Valuetainment.
Valuetainment. They talked about, I think the show changed names once or something. I could be wrong. But they talked a lot.
Vlad TV.
Yeah.
And at first, I think he started doing motivational type videos.
Yeah, he was a finance guy. He did motivational videos. He does a lot of, I mean, almost the Jordan Peterson type messaging, like clean yourself up. He's got good traditional values, served in the military. I mean, really a great guy and a great American story because like parents immigrated, came in and he assimilated and he made a success of himself. But his shows have kind of transitioned. I used to watch for the finance stuff. And they've kind of because there's like the business doc on there and a couple comedians. He's got kind of an eclectic group. And they've really transitioned where now it's some of the best political viewing that you'll have. They get big interviews. They do 2-hour-long shows.
And organized crime. I mean, like I said, he had Sammy the Bull on for 3 hours. He had Philly and Eddie on for a couple hours. He had all kinds of other guys on there. Natalie and whatnot from Philly.
Right. Yeah. And that's what's kind of exciting right now is that there's different news outlets. I mean, shoot, Tim Pool, I've been a fan of his show for years, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but he gets great guests on. They have long form interviews. He had President Trump on for like 20 minutes right after Kash Patel. And I'm like, think of this, like 4 years ago, like they wouldn't have let that happen. And now it's just that. And that's why like we're a part of Red Voice Media or Red Voice News, because there's this new ecosystem that's being created of content creators, and that's going to be huge.
And let me give a shout out and a thank you to Wayne Dupree, because all during that time, Donald Trump made time for Wayne Dupree from the very beginning.
Oh yeah,
I only got him once, but Wayne's had him several times. He was invited to the White House, or at least he was invited to a forum with the president. I think it was the White House.
Yep.
And several times, I mean, this is he's been on here a lot.
Yeah, that's one thing with Wayne Dupree, loyal to a fault, man. And Wayne Dupree and President Trump have had a longstanding relationship from before he even got into politics, and Wayne has never wavered in his support for Trump. And what I like too is, even though like there's this perception like, oh, if you're a Trump person, you drink the Kool-Aid, you can't say anything negative. Wayne will be the first person to offer negative feedback to President Trump if it warrants. And he's never got any blowback from it, as long as we're fair, as long as we're fair and straightforward. So
I think a lot of it on the president's side was due to a big heart, and he's in his business, and people around him in his business are loyal to him, and he expects that. And he's very loyal. He's very loyal. And I don't think he was ready for the snakes that are elected officials at the federal level. I don't think he was ready for that.
Right.
The celebrities, they're bought and paid for. They do what they're told. And basically the politicians do too. But, the Republican Party is the biggest casualty of Donald Trump, in my opinion.
Right. Well, there's going to be no going back for the Republican Party. And, for those of us who had conservative values that were getting taken advantage of for years, you see the political corruption, the Mitch McConnells, the Kevin McCarthy's, now the Speaker Johnsons. What'll be really troubling for the power, though, is when the Democrats wake up and realize Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy are just one and the same. They just have different bad ideas, but every decision is to make us more dependent on the government, to make the government bigger, all those sorts of things.
And to make the uniparty stronger so we can continue to steal. Once you figure that out, that this whole thing is set up so they can get money, either by stealing it or by starting a war or by creating another agency or whatever. That's all it's about.
Right. Oh, man. So have you watched any of this hearing today with the Garland?
No.
Oh, we're going to have to break it down on tomorrow's show. For those who haven't checked it out, like Matt Gaetz, he has been on fire just exposing the corruption. And it's funny because I follow both right and left news sources, and to see the people on the left, I mean, it's like Fauci. We talked about the Fauci hearing. The Democrats started out thanking him for his service to the country, and you're such a hero, and rah, rah, rah yesterday. And I'm just sitting there. It just blew my mind. And I don't know what it's going to take to wake up everyday Americans that the government's lying to you. They're spinning a narrative. They're in service of corporations, and guys like President Trump are what we've got to go fight that. And that's why you need to support folks like him, or Mayor Trent Staggs we've had on, or you see some MAGA supported Matt Gaetz and some of those guys that we've got to expand that in this next round of elections.
President Trump endorsed Staggs too. That was a good thing.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Let's face it, the current geopolitical situation isn't great, and under this administration, the economy hasn't exactly inspired confidence. As a result, Americans like you are concerned about their retirement savings, and for good reason. But there's good news. Gold has held its value since the dawn of mankind. And did you know that gold is mentioned in every book of the Bible from Genesis through Revelation? As a faith-driven precious metals company, Genesis Gold Group helps Americans protect their life savings from the threats facing our nation. And here's what I love about them. They don't do gimmicks like the big gold companies and insult your intelligence with absurd claims of $10,000 in free silver. Nothing's free, ladies and gentlemen. Instead, they actually want customers to be fully aware of all options, not just the ones that benefit the seller. And they educate you all along the way. Get your free definitive gold guide to get started and learn more about investing in gold and protecting your retirement from uncertain times. Visit rvmgold.com now. That's RVM Gold. Fill out the basic contract form, and a member of the team will be in touch. Again, that's rvmgold.com.
Shout out to our friends at RVM. And I got to say, we've talked about it on the show, but folks, if you are not starting to stock up on precious metals, you're missing the boat. Because we talk about inflation, we talk about economic collapse, we talk about all that stuff, and it's coming, between now and the election, when Trump wins after the election, there's just going to be a lot of economic uncertainty. And I use Hutch's example all the time. You buy some gold and it's worth, 30 loaves of bread. And then the gold goes up 10 times in value. And so, from a dollar perspective, feels like you have more, but you still get to buy bread. Where if you have $1, that dollar right now, your dollar buys 80 cents compared to what it used to buy. And
gold never goes up in value. The dollar goes down in value.
Yep.
That's the fluctuation. It's not the gold.
Right.
It's the politicians and the Fed.
Right.
The gold is, if you buy gold, at the end of the day, when you cash it out, it all depends on the value of the dollar.
Right.
But that's something that you don't have to cash out. Pass that down to your kids.
Right.
It's something that's been around forever.
And it's
the color.
And it's interesting that you say that because, as we experience that, and Wayne's going to be experiencing that with his mom, like when your parents die and you want things that you can pass down to your children. I mean, holy cow, if they have any assets, it's all going to get gobbled up by, assisted living or whatever. And then what doesn't get gobbled up by them gets gobbled up by the government in taxes by, hey, here's an inheritance or whatnot. It's crazy. And I mean, you tell that story about the $50 in gas where guy buys $50, uses cash, then that guy goes and spends, and after 10 transactions it's still $50, whereas if it's in the bank, at the end of that circle it's $35 because everybody's taking $1 here, $1 there, $2 there.
It's true. Back to the politicians reading their lines. I want to play, going back to Trump here a little bit, I want to play a clip of MSNBC's historian and how he feels about things. Historian.
We have a guilty verdict against a former president on 34 criminal counts while he's also running for president. There's no legal or political precedent for what we are witnessing. But how does this compare to other destabilizing moments in our history?
Well, I think the choice is actually pretty clear. We've got a convicted felon, but, in days of yore, if a convicted felon had run, let's say, for alderman, which was probably about as high as he or she would have aspired until the last couple of decades, that person would have said, I served my time, I learned my lesson, I have remorse. There's going to be no one more zealous than I am in enforcing our legal system. Instead, you and I saw that rant at the bottom of the brass elevator in Trump Tower yesterday by the presumed Republican nominee of this year. And he's saying the system is rotten. I want to dismantle parts of the Constitution. I think that people should not respect the law. And so when you've got someone who is promising at the same time to be dictator for a day, and it'll never be for a day, as you know, it'll be for 4 years, if not for his lifetime, if that begins. At the same time as he's saying, I'm going to dismantle our rule of law, which is the glory of America, keeps the peace, assures fairness when it works for all Americans. You've got dictatorship and anarchy at the same time. Mm-hmm. Do you, Jonathan, think that a majority of Americans is going to vote for dictatorship and anarchy in November? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So anarchy, the definition of anarchy is a lack of governance. So how can you have dictator and anarchy at the same time? The guy's a moron. I'll tell you, they ought to have to take that show. They have the freedom to say whatever they want, but there ought to be a ruling that comes down that says you cannot call that news.
Right.
You have to make that a podcast or make it an opinion show, but the news in that title has to be stripped. I'm telling you, man, that's crime what he's saying up there. And he's an educated man.
The whole thing is mind-numbing. When you take first, I don't know how they're going to sell Democrat voters on the Trump's a dictator narrative, because you're watching every Trump supporter get thrown in jail. I mean, today they announced another fake elector prosecution out of Wisconsin. Donald Trump's getting convicted. January 6th, folks. We talked about the 80-year-old lady that's going to jail for praying in front of an abortion. You see all of those people going to jail. You see on the left at violent protesters, murderers, rapists, killers, none of them going to jail. And then you can say, yeah, Trump's going to be a dictator. He's going to weaponize the government. How is there some unknown army like that we don't know about? And he's talking about firing a bunch of government workers. That would give him less power rather than more power. I don't understand. And
where does this come from? He's going to be in for life. I mean, that's something you guys do.
Right. Well, and I got to say, and Hutch, answer me. Hopefully you agree with this. I wish the Trump of their fever dreams really existed. I really wish the guy.
Some of it better be existing.
Right.
There's some retribution is not revenge. Retribution is we got to set this ship back level again.
I was going to say, personally, if Trump went in and said, I'm going to institute a 12-year term for myself, we're going to shut down 3/4 of the federal government, we're going to disband the Department of Justice, we're going to deport all the illegal aliens, I'm going to extend my presidency because it's going to take me a little longer to get this stuff done, I'd be like, okay.
And everybody over 2 stars is retired today.
Right. Anybody that can't meet the minimum fitness requirement, you're gone. Yeah. Like, let's get a military where
so much for females in the military, they'd be gone. I figured out how to fix it. I did. How you fix the problem with especially weight in the military. I'll just go with the Army. That other services can take care of themselves. I just make the pants so big, and if you can't fit in the pants, you can't join. You can't
serve in the military.
That's all you got to do. You got a maximum size,
right?
And that's it. If you can't stuff your fat ass in there, hey,
that's too bad. Well, and it's funny too, because I was starting to look into some of this military stuff, because now it just came out that NATO is going to allow like U.S. troops on European borders.
Oh,
and so I'm like, okay. Let's say we do that. And I'm trying to find data on what percentage of our military is actually military capable. Because like most of those trannies that you see in the military, or a lot of the women, like they have things built into their contract where they don't have to like serve in active combat. And I'm like, I wonder what percent of our military could actually like go fight a war in Ukraine if it came down to it.
Well, the thing is the military is highly logistical.
Right.
And so there's only a small percentage of you. Supposedly on paper, every soldier has a rifle or a pistol.
Yep.
Everyone. And they all go to basic combat training before they do anything else. And then they go into advanced individual training where they become a veterinarian or an infantryman or a tank crewman or whatever. But there's way more MOS's jobs that are non-combat than there are that are combat.
Right.
So.
Doesn't that seem backwards? I mean, you served in the military.
When you go overseas, I think because we've gone into this contractual military industrial complex situation, I thought personally, and I was there in the surge, 2007 and 2008 in Iraq, and I thought life was way too easy, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had these freaking chow halls you wouldn't believe. It was absurd, man. It was absolutely nuts. And they served 4 meals a day, and I think they were buying cans of pop. Cans of Pepsi cost them like $3.50 a can or something, and they were putting them in the cooler. And there was salad bars and shrimp and steak night and lobster. It was terrible. I mean, to me, I would rather have and no Army guy touched the food.
Right.
All our cooks didn't get to cook. Now, it was different when we opened the theater. When we opened the theater in 2003, then guys are living in tents and mess sergeants are cooking and things like that. But then they quickly got into KBR and got all these third country nationals. So a lot of it was logistics is where we got a lot of our casualties. I mean, this is the first first battle or war, whatever conflict that we've been in, that I think a very big percentage of the KIAs and the casualties were truck drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the combat was at the beginning, and I mean, there was combat throughout, but we were just so superior. They'd hit our truck drivers on convoys and things like that. So I don't know if that answered your question. I forget what your question was.
Well, yeah, I guess it makes sense, some of the infrastructure and some of the supports that they need. It's just, for me as a civilian, as I look at it from an outsider, it's like one would think at a base level, most everybody would have to be able to serve on the front lines. And you keep seeing all
yeah. I mean, you are able to. I mean, there's things that'll keep you from deployment.
Right.
But once you're deployed, you're deployed. And many times in our military's history, the captain or the colonel came in and said, all right, all you mechanics, all you cooks on the line.
Right.
That happens.
But that's what I'm wondering, if it comes down to an actual ground battle, let's say, all the women and the trannies.
Don't get me started on it. Don't get me started on that.
Are they really going to send them to?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And a lot of them will. I'm not going to talk bad about them. Yeah. They all go.
Wow. See, I thought they got like a combat exemption.
The trannies do.
The trannies do.
Because of the medication they're on and stuff like that, but females don't.
Oh my God.
And they fought for that. The Democrats are the ones that fought for that.
Isn't it ridiculous at how much like the women's rights thing's been reversed? Like, congratulations, ladies.
Right.
You are going to be registering for the draft when it starts, when the military industrial complex, Joe Biden, all those guys finally get World War III started, you will get to register for that draft. Congratulations.
It's great. Great society.
And I mean,
great culture.
What's their reason for not? You want equality and everything else. Like, hey, here we go. And now you got men.
We're gonna lose.
Right. Oh, the whole thing's bad. The whole thing is bad.
Back to that historian for a second, who said, what Democrat would vote for dictator and anarchist? Is there really a bunch of people that would vote for that? Well, check this out.
This might be a little inside information, but as I was leaving my house about 37 seconds ago, I asked my wife, what are we up to now? And she said, just in terms of small dollar, we're well over $70 million. This is $21 donations, $43 donations, right? Small dollar donations. If you add the large dollar donations to it, you're over $200 million, but you're over $70 million. And by the way, Maria, 30% of those people have never been seen before by a political party, right? I mean, these are Americans who are pissed off. They're coming out of the woodwork, and they want to support a guy that they just believe is getting bamboozled by a system. And we saw it with impeachment 1. We saw it with impeachment 2. We see it where they weaponize every liberal DA and AG across the country with one intent, to take him down, to slander him, to ruin his reputation, to try and divide his family, to try and bankrupt him, to throw him in jail, to do whatever the hell they can do. And America sees through it. They know exactly what's going on.
So, I mean, did you ever see a picture of the Trump family? Do you realize how big Eric Trump is? He towers over Don Jr.
Oh, yeah.
The only one bigger than him is
Barron.
Barron,
right.
Yeah.
I wonder how big Barron's going to make.
He's big, man. He's Wilt Chamberlain big.
Right. And you wonder if Barron Trump, like, after going through all this stuff, all the attacks on the family, the other Trumps, like, they've got their own things going on, but Barron Trump's had to live through this. Like, he's
got to be mad, man. He's got to be mad.
Oh my God. Yeah. He's there front row for this stuff in the White House. And it's like, however many years ago, 8 years ago, his dad's one of the most popular people in the world. And now he's getting death threats. And to him, it's just his dad, I
remember watching him on stage when President Trump won the election, gave his speech, and he didn't want to be there, man.
Right.
We got to watch that kid grow up. I hope he has a great future.
Yeah, but now 18 years old, and he'll start speaking out, and for him, he sees like how the Obama kids are treated, and how the Biden kids are treated, and how they're going to go after him. I mean, what if we've made like Trump 2048 is Barron Trump coming out going,
make him vice president.
Right. There you go. I'm going to finish what my dad started 20 years ago.
And Laura Trump, I heard her talking about him one time, and says that guy, when they unleash him, no one's going to be able to beat him. He's going to be a killer.
Sounds like he's super smart, well-read, pretty refined, has picked up a lot of both his mom's and dad's best characteristics. Oh my, maybe we do that. We just extend President Trump's presidency until Barron's ready.
Yeah.
And then we just let Barron take over for.
You know, there's people that would hear you say that and just be screaming right now.
Right.
They can't take a joke. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, somebody's going to clip that and it's going to show up somewhere on the interweb. Like, see the Trump supporters, they want to install a monarchy. Oh my God.
It's unreal, man. Unbelievable. I mean, we've got one right now. Who do you think Joe Biden's pulling the strings, man? Obama came out 2 days ago and gave the Palestinian policy of the federal government. He's still running the show.
Right.
Obama hates Jews. He's a Muslim.
Right.
You know, and if he's not, he is in spirit.
Well, and this just in too, there's no difference between Barack Obama and AOC. They were actors. They were chosen by whoever's really telling them what to do. I mean, just look at Barack Obama's net worth chart. It's like, bonk. And
if you look at it, there's a guy out there that doesn't get much airplay, but Judge Joe Brown is one of the smartest guys I've ever listened to. And I always took him as a joke, a TV guy. But lately he's been coming out, and man, can he connect the dots. I mean, he's basically saying George H.W. Bush is what gave us Barack Obama.
Oh, I can believe that.
I mean he does it succinctly too. I mean, he names names.
Right. Well, and it's funny too, as you just connect all the dots. I mean, who was the last president they tried to assassinate?
Reagan.
And who was his vice president?
Right. Yeah. And it forced on him.
Right.
He was forced on the guy.
Yep.
And the guys in the Bush camp hated Reagan and Reagan's people.
Yep.
They did a lot to Reagan what they did to Trump.
Right. It was just they didn't have the full control of the media apparatus at that time. You know, I think conservative media, conservative journalism was a lot stronger. And I mean, Reagan, like, it was hard to not like Reagan. You know, he was but I mean, the trajectory is very similar. He was a Democrat. He became a Republican. He had populist policies.
He was a Democrat and he was a union official.
Right. Yeah. And when he became a Republican and conservative, which tends to happen with people, you start out liberal, and as you get older and things start making sense, you become more conservative. And he wasn't perfect. Reagan screwed up a lot of stuff, just like history will show. Trump made a lot of mistakes too. But man, I mean, they tried to shoot Reagan, you know. Well, I'm sure CIA or nothing was ever involved in that.
No, of course not. But yeah, that was a crazy time. It really was. What's going on in Minnesota with the Somalians that stole $500,000 from children or something? Something's going on over there.
I gotta say, this story is just fascinating because did you see the part two where they tried to bribe one of the witnesses with a bag of money?
Yeah, I did. $120,000, a pretty big piece of the pie.
Yeah. So the Somali groups, COVID funds, food assistance. I mean, all this government stuff, none of it's audited. And these millions of dollars were going into these food programs and the Somali things. It's just like Ukraine. It's never audited. They never check it. Well, they got busted for stealing. So far, they've just uncovered like $500,000, but it's probably going to be 5 or 10 million by the time they get through it. And then just as this trial starts, and I mean, I've told you before, like these neighborhoods,
$500 million, not $500,000.
Oh yeah, $500 million, and it was huge. And these Somali neighborhoods are like the old Italian gang neighborhoods, where like it's its own country, it has its own ecosystem. But yeah, somebody showed up at one of the witnesses. I don't know how much money $125,000 in cash is, but that would be a lot of money. They showed up, and here you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's your government money at work, folks. Like, and there's no audits for it. There's nobody keeping track. I mean, can you imagine how many billions of dollars are just getting stolen from government coffers?
Well, like you said, that was the massive wealth move with the COVID funds. I mean, that was huge, man. There were loans and grants, and oh my goodness, man. And after the fact, there's still it still hasn't ended. That's part of that.
Well, and here's the shocking thing. You add spending into the federal government, and then it turns out they never want to stop spending that money. I mean, shocking, isn't it?
It is. And I'll tell you, you look at this Hunter Biden trial and you look at these different things, and a lot of that, the most important thing going on right now is going on in Russia and Ukraine.
Yep.
Anybody that doesn't understand that's going to be surprised. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said yesterday the United States could face fatal consequences for allowing Ukraine to use American weapons to strike targets on Russian soil. He was responding to statements from U.S. officials on Friday that President Biden reportedly granted Ukraine permission to hit targets in Russia with weapons provided by the United States under certain situations. More specifically, the Ukrainians were cleared to hit positions in Russia, launching devastating artillery and missile attacks against a border city of Kharkiv. We got to stop this. I don't know. I mean, there's nobody protesting. It's like nobody sees what this is, man. This is huge. This changes the whole country forever, just like World War II did. And we are not the same country that we were in the 1930s. There is no arsenal of democracy left.
Well, and what's the number one and two resources you need to fight a war? If you're going to fight a war, like, let's have the conversation.
Fuel and steel.
Right. Well, I think it's money and people.
Oh, yeah, of course. Money. Yeah. I was thinking natural resources.
Yeah, natural resources.
Industrial. But yeah, I mean, we've got the people.
Right. We've got people, but how many people are going to go serve?
Well, you don't give them the question. You don't give them the choice.
But that's what I mean. It's going to be people are going to get conscripted or drafted or whatnot.
This is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that we're just not going to do it, take that out of your head.
Right.
That's going to, they're going to figure out a way. I don't think, I mean, it's possible that we won't win it.
Right.
And even winning it, if you start launching missiles into Russia, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to launch missiles. Right.
This is not going to go well. And they're putting American troops over there now. I mean, this should be terrifying.
It is to me.
It is to me too. And if you look, like, after World War II, we were in a very strong economic position, but there were even things they went through to fund World War II people weren't ready for. And everybody lives in this fake world right now where, oh, we can just print more money, or, oh, student loan forgiveness, it isn't real money, or whatever. At the end of the day, when you go to war and half the world pulls out of your currency,
oh boy,
and then all of a sudden you can't keep running up your credit card, and you need real money to pay for real bullets.
And then what's the government going to do? The government's going to come confiscate your property.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, we've talked about before on the show, like the gold confiscations or different things that the government's done, selling Americans war bonds, things like that.
Ration tickets for food and fuel and tires and nylons and everything else.
Right. Yeah. And we're just, and I said it on the show when this whole Ukraine thing started. If we're going to get involved and we're going to be the bankroll for this, we need to put a resolution on the floor of Congress. Let's just declare war against Russia or not. Because if we're not going to be in a war, good luck, Ukraine. Like, we wish you the best, and maybe if we wouldn't have pushed for NATO to be in Ukraine so that we could put American nuclear weapons on the border of Russia, maybe Russia wouldn't have attacked. Who knows?
And the problem with our military leadership is, at the very most, the only combat they've seen is Vietnam.
Right.
The rest of them are much less than Vietnam, even in intensity.
Yep.
That's not what this is. This is real, man. This is everybody dies.
Yeah. And I mean, this is all the stuff that they said Trump's going to do. Oh, when Trump gets elected, we're going to be in World War III. And I mean, we've got World War III brewing both in Europe and in the Middle East now.
And in the South China Sea.
And the South China Sea. And oh, by the way, the bad guys in all those, they have an alliance. And that's an alliance where they're actually working together. They're working for common good. Our alliances, they're just looking for us to give them money, and they're not supporting.
It's a big gay Soviet Union is what we are.
Oh, my God. Speaking of which.
Because England's just as gay as we are, and Spain and Italy are the same.
Right.
And don't even talk about France, the Islamic Republic of France.
Oh my gosh. Well, that'll be interesting too if when this kicks off and half of Europe has been taken over by the Muslims, like what side do they?
Hey, we're next. I mean, look at Minneapolis.
Right.
I look at Akron, Ohio. I mean, it's spreading, and we're letting it spread. We're
Right.
damn fools.
And people don't realize that's a thing. Speaking of fools, though, we got to address this Biden border thing before we go.
Go for it.
So this is going to be the most ironic mind twist ever to see how your Democrat friends justify this. So Joe Biden, when he took office first week, he undid 94 executive actions President Trump had done in regards to the border. 90 something. I'll have the number wrong. I think it was 94. And he bragged about it. And then for 3 years, the border's fine, the border's fine, the border's fine, the border's fine. Finally, 6 months ago, they could no longer ignore that the border's a debacle, sanctuary cities are failed, all these things. They pushed forward this bill that was a bipartisan bill, worst bill ever, should never been passed. They're trying before the election to blame Republicans for not doing action on the border. And Joe Biden is going to come out today. He might have done it while we were on the podcast. He was supposed to be releasing it today, releasing executive action on the border. And if you ask your Democrat friends, if he can do this, why didn't he do this 3 years ago? Why did he undo all the Trump ones? It will be the biggest con job ever that they're going to try to pull on the American people, acting like Joe Biden's serious about the border.
Unbelievable. And you know, I think worse than watching them do these kind of things is watching the freaking magpies that buy it.
Right.
I mean, that's hard to take, man. We like that, those Fauci questions.
Right.
You know, it's like, come on, man. That doesn't even, an adult knows what you're doing here.
Right.
You know, you're giving them a softball, underhanded softball, like it's the home run derby or something.
Right. Well, and I don't know how we get to a point that if you're I don't know how retarded you have to be to vote for a Democrat. I don't know a nice way to say it. But you're sitting there, and if you're going to believe this switcheroo about the border, you shouldn't be allowed to vote.
I agree.
You have the IQ of a houseplant. I don't know what to say.
Well, and that's what they've done that on purpose.
Right.
These schools are a setup, man. It's the biggest civil rights thing we have in our lifetime, man. I give you the William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal, Sean Hannity, Don Lemon comparison. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It really is. It's dangerous.
It is very dangerous. Although it's interesting, Trump, it went around this weekend, but he was talking about one of the first things he was going to do is shut down the Department of Education. And the left was sending it like, oh my God, can you believe that? And I'm like, don't promise me a good time if you're not delivering.
Right. I agree, man. I mean, people don't realize it's only been around since 73. Another one of Jimmy Carter's heroic acts.
Oh my God.
Establishing the DOE. Anyway, it's that time. Jason, your final thoughts, sir.
Well, Hutch, great job. For those who don't know, Hutch put in the yeoman's work, getting the videos and all that stuff together. I appreciate that. He's done this a lot more. Wayne, prayers go out to you. Folks, if you haven't done so, if you're a regular viewer of the show, reach out to Wayne, send him a note, let him know you're thinking of him. That means the world to him. On for the news this week, Hutch talked about it. The Ukraine thing should be getting more press. And that's kind of what I'm going to be looking into this afternoon is they're talking about putting troops on borders in Europe, like really terrifying stuff that should be front page news. So
that's true. And the thing about it is that the recruiting numbers are down so low. The thing that I'm afraid of the most is they put these illegals in there.
Oh my God. You know what's coming. They've already said it.
Think about the ramifications of that. These are not our friends, folks.
Right.
These are not our friends. On another note, Senator Goldbar Menendez from New Jersey has decided he's going to run as an independent. Things must be sucking over there for this uniparty. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne, can't wait to get you back. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope we didn't do too much damage. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. for Jason Robinson and myself. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest.
To get your free definitive gold guide and get started learning more about investing in gold and protecting your retirement from uncertain times, visit rvmgold.com now. Fill out the basic contact form and a member of the team will be in touch. Again, that's rvmgold.com or call 855-625-7760.